Hello everyone, this is the Middle-earth in Mercia podcast, and we are coming to you with another tournament preview. And this time I've actually managed to do the video recording properly. So Ash, we're finally on camera and displayed. Say hello to everyone. They can finally see the face behind the few words.
Hi everyone.
Yeah. So we're doing this, obviously, like we tried to do the video stuff before and it didn't really work out. I think the coverage of the event was decent and all that, but the video aspect of it didn't really work. So this is really our first proper time doing the recording, so you're going to have a bit of patience with us. I think I'm going to have a hard time making myself look at the camera rather than look at the screen.
I'm going to have to try not to fidget.
Yeah, so you have to forgive that a bit. But yeah, it is Friday, and we have got a new tournament tomorrow, and it seems like this is actually quite a good way of getting a bit of coverage out before the event for people that are attending it alongside us. And also then we can do a follow-up episode and we can focus, just about our experience at the event. So the tournament we've got it's being held near Oxford, is it, Ash?
Yeah, Dorchester on Thames, so just below Oxford from where we are.
Okay, it's called Mini Madness, and it's a GBHL80, and this one's a bit unusual in that it is going to be a 200-pointer, which is a points level that neither me or Ash has ever played at before, and that means that they've reduced the game length, and it's only going to be 45 minutes a game. But we are going to get 6 in, so it's almost like with a 2-day tournament where you're able to get 6 games in and you're really able to get people on different win percentages, separating the positions, rather than it going on to those secondaries of how many tournament points you've scored and stuff. And I think it's something like 24 attendees or something like that, isn't it, Ash? It's under 30.
It is 28.
28. So yeah, with 6 games, you really shouldn't be seeing more than a handful of people at each sort of tournament point level. So that's going to be really interesting. So yeah, as I say, Mini Madness held by Dan Garside, and it's a GBHL80. So yeah, Ash, you and me have played some practice games at this level, mainly because, and we're obviously going to have an episode on our doubles event that we had at Warhammer World eventually. I think one of the things we really noticed there with a different game size was how much of an effect it had on the timings of the game and how long you got. So I was very keen and pushed for us to do some practice games to see what it's like playing to 45 minutes. I've spoken for quite a bit. Why don't you tell the viewers the differences you've noticed while I have some...
Yeah, I don't think we actually played to time. When we played the games, they did end quite quickly because the board size is obviously quite small, model count is quite small.
Yeah.
And I think we did play the games though where the game ends when a certain thing happens.
Mm-hmm.
So that's probably why we didn't play to time. I think not having your legendary legions in there and not being able to ally is going to create an interesting dynamic as well. I think everyone has to bring sort of a pure list, and you don't get some of the bonuses you would get for, say, bringing Riders of Theoden or something like that.
Yeah,
not that I don't think anyone would at this points level.
Yeah, that was one of the restrictions I forgot to mention. It's green factions only, no alliances.
And yeah, I like the quick pace. It's a good It's good sort of. It feels a bit like playing Middle-earth Kill Team, I think we said, didn't we? It's because the model count's quite low, the board is quite small, and obviously the time frame is quite small, so it's a good game to play on an evening if you haven't got a lot of time and you want to just get a game in. I think we sort of found...
One thing I was going to say that would be interesting to get your view on is I did feel that these games are more dependent on luck. Luck plays a bigger role in it, just because when you've got 20, 30 combats, the dice tend to sort themselves out, especially over a series of turns. But I thought in the games we played, it was very easy for somebody to just have 3 good rolls. Like if you're in a 12v12, have 3 good rolls, getting those 6s to wound. And suddenly you've got a quarter advantage in terms of numbers. And it's kind of hard to come back from that. What did you think, Ash?
Yeah, I think as soon as you start dropping your numbers down, we found as well, didn't we, that it's obviously the game's quite based on this anyway, but anything that can give you more dice rolls within a combat is really helpful, because you're just increasing those odds of being able to win the combats or do the wounds. So anything that's going to give you more dice rolls, anything that's going to bring the statistics more in your favour to just balance out that unlucky bit that you could have, because obviously, yeah, if you've only got 6 combats and your opponent has 3 lucky rolls and you have 3 bad rolls, it can quickly turn the tide of the game, and you could lose your force quite quickly.
Yeah, which I mean, obviously those principles are true for the main game, but I think the point, having played him,
it's more of an emphasis in this level,
yeah,
because
it's hard to come back from, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like, one bad turn of combat in the main game at 400, 500, 600 points, you're not going to lose half of your models unless something spectacular has happened. But in this format, when people are realistically playing 12 to 15 models, that can easily happen.
Yeah, and I think initially we thought maybe having the maneuverability would be a good thing in this level, but we actually found that it doesn't really matter. It doesn't really have that much of an effect, especially if the board is going to be quite heavy with terrain. It doesn't really matter. Like, I was trying, obviously, having the Marauders instead of normal Urukai, and it didn't really give that much of a benefit to have that extra movement, because I think even in like hold ground or something where you need to be able to have that maneuverability, I don't think you really need it because the board is so small.
I would say though that when you're getting to the level of cavalry, it was a bit different though, because the board is so small, it's just like
you can move like half the board pretty much in one turn.
Yeah. So it's a 2-foot board. So with the smaller deployment zones, most of the deployment zones are now 6 inches. That means if they deploy forward and you deploy forward, there's only 12 inches between you. So guaranteed, pretty much, if you have somewhere, a safe haven to move your cavalry to, they are only getting 1 turn of shooting on you, and it may not be a clear shot.
Yeah, so that's another thing, didn't we? We found that the bows didn't really have that much of an effect, but you maybe need a couple, because one game you just sat and did your blowpipes and I had no answer to it really.
Yeah, so what happened in the game that Ash is referencing is I'm taking Far Harad, and I've got some camels with blowpipes on them. So he was all infantry, and he didn't have any bows, and it wasn't a game that required me to be in a specific spot. It wasn't like one of the finite objectives. It was quarters, I think. So I just had to stay round about in the same area. And that allowed me, even though I only had 2, that allowed me to just bully him because he had no answer to it. Really quick turns, kept shooting. But yeah, I think any lists that have gone heavy on shooting and they don't have that kind of imbalance that we're talking about there, I think they're going to struggle, because once you've got a piece of terrain on there, and there is going to be terrain, we don't know how much, but that will have a big effect on it. I think realistically you will be lucky to get 2 turns of unobscured shooting. Very lucky if it's unobscured.
Yeah, I think if you're against dwarves, you might have a few more shooting, but then the dwarf armor sort of negates the strength of the bows anyway. So
the thing is though, if those, because there are, as we'll see when we look at the list, there are quite a lot of dwarf lists. Even with that very high defense, if they haven't brought anything that shoots, and it's not one of the objective ones where you have to be in a specific spot for the game end, they're going to struggle because they've got no answer to anybody that's got Riders of Rohan, for instance. The high defense, you need 6s, then 4s or whatever, but if you're able to do that 15 times, you're going to be able to take out those 3 or so models over 5-6 turns, and then you've got an advantage for the combats.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think a really interesting format, and the fact there's no legendary legions, the severe restrictions on points. So there's, I think the other restriction was it's something like 3 minimum models, 26 maximum, something like that.
It's 4 minimum models, 26 max. No legendary legions, no allies, as we said. So it's not like you can bring like a really powerful 2 powerful models or something like that and meet the 200 points. So we're not going to see some. I reckon a lot of big name heroes will get missed off.
Yeah, and as you'll see when we go into the list, the vast majority of them have just gone for sort of hero of fortitude, and then 12 people. I think there's some that are like a few more. I think there's a few heroes of valor getting up to 15, and then there are 2 outliers. And there's a few people with less than 10. So I'm guessing on the maths here, but I think the average model count is probably like 11 for the tournament from the army list that I've leafed through, which I think works really well for this format. Like Ash was saying, we didn't actually get to the 45-minute mark on any of our games. I think the quickest we had was 15 minutes, where it was just I rolled hot on Farharad camels and the game just ended very quickly. And then I think the longest we had was about 30 minutes. I've played some 200-point games against other people, and I did get a game go to term, and I did get a game go to 40 minutes with about 20 to 24 models on the table. So it's an appropriate length of time for the models, I think. But with that said, unless you've got any more comments, Ash, we will launch into a few of the lists.
No, yeah, let's jump into the list.
Okay. So here we go. I'm sure as you like people can find the event ID and stuff, people will be able to figure out whose list is list, but whose list is whose. But we're just going to exclude names from this because it's we're not trying to pick on anyone's list. We're just trying to give you a feel of the event and who's attending. So with that said, we will do one bit of bullying, and we're going to start with Ash's list. So Ash, I'm just loading up your list. I know you can't see it, but your list is on the screen. Do you want to take us through it?
So it's basically a bit like Ugluk Scouts, but without the Legendary Legion. So I've got Ugluk as my leader. I've got 5 Uruk Scouts with shield, 3 with bow, and then 1 with a banner, and then 3 Uruk warriors with pike. So that gets me to the 200 points. 13 models, 7 models breakpoint, and 3 models 25%. Yeah,
and I think this is a really nice flexible list, which is going to help you against a lot of others, while also not being like, I don't think anyone's going to sit down and be like, oh god. I think this is quite a fun list. It's a different take on Isengard as opposed to what you would see at other events, because obviously most other events you've either got Saruman or you're doing crossbow spam or something like that, and we don't have either of that here. And like you say, it's not a Legendary Legion. I think the not taking courage test until you reach 33%, that's a really overlooked advantage, and that's going to play a big part. In the games we played, we had the banner. That makes a huge difference when there's so few models. You've got fight 4, you've got strength 4 across the board. You've got to look after him, but Ugluk with 3 might points, strike, strength 5, he can help you break through some things. And then those 3 pikes giving you flexibility to like say, all right, I've got Ugluk, he's in a really important combat, I'm going to give him 2 pike supports. And then
that gives him that extra 2 attacks, so that's like 4 dice in that combat, which is it nice.
And then 3 bows for good measure to make sure you don't get bullied by anybody with mobility and range. I think it's a really good list. Are you happy with it?
Yeah, I think I'm quite happy because it still has a bit of a theme to it, and I like to build a nice theme list. I think I'd never actually thought about this until the other day, but if I get a board with like quite a lot of woodland terrain on there, they've all got woodland creature apart from the warriors, so
The spike,
that might help.
the pikes, yeah.
The pikes, yeah. So I think that might help in some cases, especially if I get against cavalry. I can just park myself in some trees somewhere, and because I think anything that gives you more attacks in a combat. So I'm finding at the minute a banner is so powerful, and every time I've not had a banner, you just feel, obviously you can't say what it would be like because you haven't got those extra rerolls, but just being able to have that extra reroll for the combat, it's just winning you more combats, and that's, I think at this level that is a lot more swingy than at the high points level.
I think also, although we have, so for this, basically, Dan has said that he's going to try and maintain the spirit of the scenarios as best as possible. He has taken out a few, but most of them still remain. And some of the ones that remain do traditionally have banner points. And I think, I haven't checked thoroughly enough to give a solid 100%, but I think you might be one of the only lists with a banner. So you have got the possibility of going into 1 or 2 games with a victory point in hand, which could be really powerful for you because it forces them to come to you in certain scenarios.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think looking at the list, there's no banners in anyone else's lists. So it could be, like you say, could be one of the only ones.
Okay, then.
We could see whether that was a good move or not at the end. I think...
Our last army tournament preview, we did go far too long. So I think on that note, Ash, we should move on to my list.
Enough of you with your filth.
But I think yours is a good list. I like it. So on to mine. I'm taking Farharad. So my original plan was I was going to take Isengard as well, and I thought I was maybe being smart with like Varsku, or taking, I forget his name. Where is it? I've got him right here. The hero of Dunland guy, with the 2 axes. Is it Gorolf? Yeah,
Gorolf or something like that.
So yeah, I was thinking about taking an Isengard list, and the sort of tact I was thinking with it, I was going to have a Crabane. I don't know. It was just really similar to Ash's, and then I thought, I'll give Ash a bit of variation, and I played a Mahud King list, which is what you see on the screen, more or less. I sort of just jotted this down and haven't really edited it since. And yeah, it was just much more free-flowing. I enjoyed playing it more, and it seemed significantly better, to be honest, and... with me needing to paint up the Isengard stuff, that sort of did, if I'm honest, quash my enthusiasm for it a bit. And I've spent the time instead making Osgiliath terrain, which I've been really happy with. So that gave me a bit of time to focus on a forgotten project. So that's where we've wound up. Ash, I spoke a lot about the advantages of your list, having played it. Why don't you speak about mine?
Yeah, I think that knockdown rule on the camels we found in some of our games was just, especially like we said, all you need is the look at, it's a lot more luck involved at the 200 points. That could swing a game. I think you had a charge into combat and killed 3 guys with just the knockdown, which when you've got 13 models, that's with the impact hits. It was brutal, and then obviously getting the 2 attacks from being a cavalry model and then having the war spear there. It's I think it's just stacking the odds in your favour more and more when you've got knockdown, the impact, then you've got the 2 attacks for cavalry, then you've got the +1 to wound. It's just like the more you can stack the odds in your favour, I think. There's not going to be many lists that get that many like additions, because without having your Legendary Legions add-ons, I think any add-ons you can have are really useful.
Yeah, And Mahood King, for me personally, it's one of my favourite models in my collection. I think he's a great model for I think it's 90 points, fully kitted out, as you see there. Spear, War Shield, Camel, 3 attacks, fight 5. He's D6. His only real downside is that he's only got 2 might, 3 might, and there's a lot of named characters coming with 3 might. Downsides of the list is obvious. I've only got 10 models. You really do need to get in there and deliver some punishment and even up those numbers with your camels. I have found like the 6 Mahood warriors, like particularly shielding. Like we all shield in big games, but we found any time a combat is not advantageous to you, shielding in this points level is really powerful, and those 6 Mahood warriors can easily feel like 12 while your Mahood King and the camels do their work. And 5 blowpipes hitting on 3s and a range of 12 is really handy on a 2-foot board. I mean, I don't think any... I think we do have to go into this tournament with an open mind of you could very easily walk away with four losses. Just because of the format. Nobody's really played this before. Large amount of luck. So, you know, other tournaments I've gone in with a list and been like, look, I am trying to do well, but I really do think on this one, it's best to go into it. Like, this is GBHL80. People are playing unusual lists. We get 6 games in. There's a lot of familiar faces. Let's have a good day, really. And, you know, if you do well, all the better. And I'm interested to see how this does. I really like Farharad, but it really does fall apart, this list, if the king is slain. I did see that a couple of times.
Yeah, and I think we found, didn't we, that your might is more useful to use your might for sort of doing your heroic moves or your strikes than it is for, say, in doing a heroic combat. I think might is going to play a big part of spending it wisely, and well, in a bigger game you'd probably go, okay, I'll do a heroic combat because it'll get me through and we can do it. But what we found is because there's a lot more pressure because you've only got these small resource of might. If you waste it on a heroic combat that you might lose, then you need that. Then you go into priority, and you've run out of might. You can't then counteract some moves, and especially with having your camels, you want to be able to have that priority so you can get the charges off.
Definitely. I think unless it's a game-winning move, I've got to have discipline and only use them for heroic move-offs. Because, there was a game against Ash where I spent a point of might, and he had a hero with 3. On a heroic combat with the king, he had 4 attacks, and I was trying to kill 1 model, and I duffed it. And it was going from 2 to 1 usable might, and that having not come off was really devastating at this points level.
Yeah.
Okay, then. We've done enough gluttony talking about ourselves. Shall we pick a list to talk about? Are there any that take your eye, Ash, that you really want to talk about, or I will just select one at random?
Let's select one at random because there's not really any.
Okay, then.
Jumping out.
I don't recall who this is, so let's have a look at this one. Okay. No, Katie's list doesn't appear to be visible. And I was trying to exclude names anyway, so we will move on to a different one. I think I might have clicked the wrong button. Okay, here is a different anonymous list.
Number?
Sorry, I'll go back. Forgive us, it's a new system. It's number 12, Ash, so that you can see it on your side. So this one is Toriel, 8 Mirkwood Rangers, and that makes a total of 197 points, 8 bows, break at 4 models, and quartered at 2. So I think that this is... I've picked one here where we've got a bit of ignorance because neither of us has ever played this. I don't think the Mirkwood Rangers get their double blade thing unless they're in the Legendary Legion. So I think these are just Fight 5 Rangers with elf bows that hit on threes, and that's about it really. And defense 3 or 4, quite low. And then Toriel's not a bad profile, but certainly not an optimum one. What do you think of this, Ash? I think
what we said before about the bows, you're not really going to get that many rounds of shooting. I think
this is going to struggle.
If this comes up against dwarves, and it's not a scenario where they can move around the board, I think it's going to struggle against something where the bows aren't really going to have that much of an impact.
Yeah, because if you're going to want to get your bow shots off, particularly with you being good, if they're coming straight at you, you're going to have to like scatter, and then especially with having 9 models, it's 9 models. So their break point is actually 5. Hopefully they realise that on the day. You're going to have to scatter to try and get your shots, and then you've got the potential of being surrounded. I think without a large amount of luck on that first round, first turn where you get to shoot, which is probably the only one where you're guaranteed to get some shots off. Hitting on threes, so a third of them miss. Toriel's got a bow, hasn't she? So you're down to 6. And then if you're needing 6 or 5, we'll be generous and we'll say it's 5. Only a third of the remaining 6, so that's 2. I don't know. And then you've got low defense. I'm not sure the lack of spears and things make up for it.
Yeah.
But
I think it'll crumble once the combats start happening. I think the list will just crumble. But then again, like we said, the luck could be there. All they need is like those lucky rolls with the shooting or the lucky rolls on the combats. So just win the combat. So
if you get in there and those, because I think Fight 5 is fairly rare at this tournament. If you get in there and you're consistently rolling sixes to win the combat, all the things we've said don't matter.
Yeah. But yeah, I think the low defense is going to be the weak point.
But maybe, to be fair, playing Rangers at higher points level is quite a horrible game experience. So maybe this was somebody, it's GBHL80 with an unusual rule set. Maybe this was somebody that wanted to have a taste of playing Rangers while not playing it at those more abusive points levels. But
yeah,
let's move on then. We think that one might have a hard day. There is one down here I saw that was garnering a bit of chat on Facebook. Here we go. So we have 1 Dwarf Captain, no equipment, 5 Vault Warden teams, and 1 Iron Guard. So if you're not aware, Vault Wardens are the large shield and spear combo where you've got a guy that has defense 9 at the front, and you have a guy with a spear supporting. I think the guy on the back is defense 6. They both fight 4, I think, and both strength 4. However, if the guy with the shield at the front is not supported, he then gets a -1 to his dual rolls. And Iron Guard is a 2-attack 15-point model, D6, fight 4, strength 4, and 2 attacks. Dwarf Captain is a pretty solid model. I think I'm right in saying he's fight 5 and will be D6 without the shield. As captains go, a pretty solid one. So yeah, this one is obviously all about durability. For me, I think this is going to be a situational one. If you have to split up and the other person has mobility and range, I think you've got a real problem.
I think this is the one where you want something like the quarters objectives, or not hold ground is the centre, isn't it?
Yeah, I think on hold ground, this list has the potential to kick the living daylights out of you, particularly if terrain is kind.
Yeah, but I think anything where you have to go and get objectives and hold objectives that are placed randomly or different quadrants of the board, I think it's going to struggle because you're going to have to divide it out. So anything with more numbers is going to have a bit more of an advantage.
And I played a practice game against you because I was thinking about dwarves at one point, and I had 3 Vault Warden teams, and I had the perfect bit of terrain. It was pure like 300 style, and with your banner and a bit of luck, you were able to just chip through them because the thing is, with only 2 dice, there's a good chance of not winning the duel if they've got spears, and you were able to chip through me. I wasn't convinced it was doing what I wanted it to do, but
I think once you either break the line or manage to sort of go around the line, taking out the spear support, and then is it -1 on the defense
on the dual roll?
On the dual roll. So once you lose that spear support, that's when they can start to fall apart. So my tactic would be to try and obviously pivot around them and get into the back.
You also were using your ranged weapons and doing an in the way on the front warden to shoot the spearmen. And that was surprisingly effective because, if you take out those spearmen, they're just not as good as they are. But, I think this one's obviously a good list that could do well and a bit of a laugh in that, 5 Vault Warden teams.
It's not very often you see dwarves, but we're seeing a lot of dwarves, which is nice to see.
The person playing it as well, we're going to continue to keep things anonymous, but it's an experienced player, so I'd expect to see this one up there. I think it will play to its strengths. We'll probably have a hard time on a couple of scenarios though. Okay then, let's choose another one. We'll go for something completely different. There's a Mordor list. Let's have a look at this one. And sorry, Ash, let's go back. I didn't tell you a number. Number 13.
I opened number 13.
Okay, well done. So what have we got here? Mordor. Leader is Shagrat, Captain of Cirith Ungol. 115 points with shield and heavy armor. So straight off the bat, Shagrat, that's going to be one of the strongest heroes we see at this. With Moran and Orcs, so I think that's just 5 Moran and Orcs with weapons and shield. 5 Moran and Orcs with spear and shield. 200 points total. 11 figures, which gives it a break point of 6. Yeah, I think that's pretty solid.
Yeah, I think I'm surprised to see someone spending that much on a hero.
I think when Moran and Orcs are such good value, and you've got the D6 across the board, and you've got the Strength 4 across the board, and you've got spears on everyone. I think that's a really good combo. I think that could do really well. Obviously, it relies heavily on Shagrat doing the business, and I have been in games where Shagrat doesn't. So that is something to consider. But if he does, this has a good chance of running rampant on some people, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think Moran and Orcs have always been my nemesis. I've always struggled against them, so I think
they get a little bit expensive when you're adding spears on them, but still, not enough not to take them. But especially,
what's 45 points for 5 of them? That's
9 points.
9 points each. Yeah. No, I mean that's cheap at 45 points for 5 models.
I mean 5 models with the sword. I mean, if it was me, I think a lot of mine are outfitted with axes, so you've got that option. But say you've got axe and shield, and you've got 5 of them, D6, strength 4. It's just a really good combo. One thing it might, and I think there's only one I've seen that's got any form of terror. But if it's coming up against terror, obviously this doesn't have any answer to that. You're not going to be able to get those orcs into combat. But I'm guessing this list is betted on there hopefully shouldn't really be any terror, and hopefully I don't come up against it. I like this list. This is, if I had Shagrat, Captain of Cirith Ungol, I'd like to think maybe I would have considered this. I like it.
It's a nice, simply built list.
Yeah. All right, on to the next one then, because I'm hoping we can get a few in and then we'll call it. What should we go for? Something completely different, or look at some of the mirror matches?
Let's go for something
different. There's one here.
Yeah.
So I know this player has played a much larger version of this list in the past with orcs and all sorts. But this is somebody really leaning into it's an 80. I'm going to do something different. And they quite simply have the Spider Queen and all her nefarious ways and 4 giant spiders. I think the Spider Queen is a glass cannon, the ultimate glass cannon. I think if I come up against this, it's just going to be like, do I get to charge? If I get to charge, this is going to have a really bad day. And any of the ranged lists, if it gets a bit of luck, then you could just shoot the Spider Queen and her spiders down. But if this manages to charge you in a nice way and use the spiders to stop the Spider Queen from getting surrounded, could do more damage than you wish rather quickly. What do you think, Ash?
I think, obviously, she's got the manoeuvrability as well, because is it 10 inches for the spider?
I think it is 10 inches. I might be wrong. It could be.
Fire those little spiders.
They're either 10 or 8. I really don't play. I've never played spiders, so it's something I always check when I play.
Yeah, and then she can fire those little spiders, can't she?
She can.
That could do quite well at getting into combat in probably the first turn.
Yeah,
and holding your heroes up or holding some of your models up.
Yeah,
so that'd be quite.
The only thing I wonder is whether they're going to want to use their will to spawn the hatchlings, which having 3 more models on the table could, even though they're rubbish, could make a really big difference. But you only need to kill 3 giant spiders. That's not a particularly big ask. And then the Spider Queen's taking courage tests. So maybe you want to keep that will back. But, this for me, this is the classic kind of like light madness that you see at a GBHL80. But we have seen before, I forget the name of the 80 we went to at Board in Brum, but there was an all spider list that when you looked at it, you wouldn't have expected it to do that well. And I think he wound up coming 4th just because it's, it's sideways in at the meta.
If the Spider Queen, I remember playing at that same tournament, and if she can get Hurl off, that can be quite brutal.
Yeah. So let's do 1 or 2 more lists, and then we're going to call it. Sorry for anybody that's we've moved out, missed out, but it's just with these things. If you do everybody, it becomes 2 hours, and nobody will watch it, and also we take up most of our day. I'm going to mention a couple of lists that I'm like, and I do think that people are entitled to bring whatever list they want to an event. But I do feel like all this is going to result in is next time the event is held is the rules will be tightened in. And we won't focus on them too much because, I don't want to rain on anyone's parade too much. The event is still to come. And I do genuinely hope everyone has a great day. But we've got 2 lists. There is Lake Town, and it's 8 bows, 24 models, Alfred the Counsellor, and Master of Lake Town Leader, and this and another list, which is the Goblin Town one. It's just designed to, this is another one, 26, and then we've also got the ability to bring in more goblins, and I don't think these are these are definitely going to win the event or anything like that. But I just think with 45 minutes, these players are going to have to play their turn in a respectfully quick manner. Else that time's just going to get eaten up and it's just going to be a non-enjoyable event. And I think particularly if you're playing one of these dwarf lists and you've got a lesser amount of models and you're going to be having very swift turns. You could say that at a bigger event, but you are going to see these lists outnumbering everybody by 2 to 1 and some lists by 3 and 4 to 1. I struggle unless these people have got great banter. I don't know them personally. I just think it's going to struggle to be a massively enjoyable game for the other side, and I I mean, maybe Dan has held these 200-point events before and he thinks it's fine, but I wouldn't be surprised if after feedback, next time one of these is held, that upper limit is like 18, 16 models. I just think for an 80, maybe it's breaking the format a little bit. But that's my personal view. Ash, what do you think? Maybe you completely disagree, but that was
I think 26 models on a 12-inch by 12-inch board.
24-inch by 24. It's 2 foot by 2 foot.
Oh, yeah. Sorry, yeah. I think it's just going to, like you say, it's going to be taking a long time. Like when we were at Warhammer World, it was we were playing like 50 models on a normal size board, so that's probably the equivalent on a smaller board. So yeah, the turns are going to take quite a while to move that many models.
Yeah, I just think if you are playing that many, you are going to have to be respectful. Like, it's not really fair if you take up 75% of the playing time and you are the person that has decided to take an incredible amount of models. I mean, maybe, they've got it locked down and they're really swift. But then on the other side of it, the difficulty is when you've got a swarm list like that, for your opponent, they're going to and particularly with Goblin Town only moving 5 inches, is it? Or is it 4 inches? But it's restricted movement anyway. For an opponent, I'm going to want to make sure they are really towing the line on their movement, because I'm not going to want to give them a massive advantage that in terms of swarming me. So that's going to slow the game down even further. And yeah, I mean, if these two lists play each other, they're going to get like 2
It's going to be a long game.
Yeah. So yeah. Anyway, this is looking to be a really cool event. So I don't want to be too.
I think at the end of the day, the rules are there, and so why not take? If you want to take that list, take it.
Yeah, I don't.
Like I said, you've got to be a bit probably open to the fact you're probably going to get a bit of grief from your opponent maybe for taking too long. And
you're going to have to watch how quick you play, and you're going to have to be aware that your opponent is probably going to have to be stricter on your movement. And like if somebody's got 12 models and they measure one of them and then they move up 3 of them, it's marginal. If somebody wants to pick up 8 models and move them at once, if it was me, it would be a flat no. Like, you're going to have to measure them individually, because it's too important when you've got that many models. Your ability to get around my flanks is whether I win whether it's just a flat loss or not.
Yeah.
But anyway, I don't want to leave it on that note. So let's do one more list.
Let's have a. What about number 2?
That was actually the one I was going to pick. Get out of my head, Ash. Okay.
I thought this was someone we know was bringing this list, and that's why I asked him if he was coming in fancy dress. But I forgot that he's not.
Okay.
That person.
You talk about the list. You chose it, Ash.
Yeah, I think I've never seen this list played before. I think normally you see this list tied in with Rohan to get the legendary lead. I've not seen it played on its own, so that'll be interesting. I think they've obviously thought 200 points, what can I take? That I think at 200 points it's a good list, because you wouldn't take it any higher, I don't think, because I don't think there's enough sort of variety within the list you can choose from. So I think someone's just thought, 200 points, it's a good opportunity to take the Wozes.
I think it's a cool list as well. Like having Gan in there with 3 might, 16 blowpipes is nothing to sniff at whatsoever.
Well, like we just said, 24-inch board, not 12 inches. I meant 12 inches on your side. You're within the opponent pretty quickly with the 12-inch range on your blowpipes, whereas on a bigger board it takes a bit longer. Whereas in this, all they have to be, if they're in the middle, you can be on your board edge and you can fire at them. So
I don't know whether do they get spears. from thinking about Gan, his model, he's got a spear. If they've got spears, I think this could be like really interesting to see how this gets on. Because if 16 blowpipes, that's enough weight of numbers, and like you say, they're not 24-inch weapons, so you're going to be using them effectively. It's not going to give your opponent the option to disengage because you're probably more dangerous with your 16 blowpipes than you are in combat.
Yeah, your opponent's probably wanting to come into combat with you on this.
Yeah, this is a cool list. You would never ever see like an All Woes' force at a different level, so I like that. Okay, one more and then we're going to call it there. Do you want to pick again, Ash?
Yeah, let's go for... What haven't we really done before? Let's do the Easterling one, because I think that's an interesting one at this point.
Okay, okay, is that number 18?
Yeah.
Okay, let's have a look, and this will be our final list, like I say. So, Easterlings, 200 points, 13 models, Breakpoint 7, Brogir the Conjurer, who is capable, I forget what it's doing, called, but it's basically like a earthquake that goes along in a line, I forget what it's called. 2 Dragon Cult Acolytes, whose big selling point is they get 2 attacks. Then 5 Easterling Warrior Black Dragons with Pike and Shield, so that's giving them a Fight 4 buff to their line. 3 Easterling Warriors with Pike and Shield, and then 2 Easterling Warriors with Shield. I think that a pike block like that is obviously, depending on the terrain, is very hard to cut through. You've got D6, you've got Fight 4. I think this is going to have a really hard time against, like, I know we've only shown one, but there are a load of dwarf lists, a load of dwarf kings. It's going to have a really hard time against that with strength 4.
Yeah, not having that strength 4.
Oh, Tremor, that's the magical power.
Is he the only magic caster that we've got at the tournament?
No, there is a budget wraith that someone has brought along with a load of Black Numenorians for the Harbinger, I think.
Yep.
Which will be really interesting for some of these lists. Sorry we didn't get time for that. But yeah, I mean, if this one gets the tremor off, I think you can do it once or twice realistically. That could be devastating with such low numbers. But then maybe we'll have a hard time on the ones where you need to get leader kills. But, you know, you can't turn your nose up at a Easterling Pike block, especially when they've got Fight 4.
Yeah, and like we keep saying, we've found that anything you can do to stack odds in your favour is really useful at this points level.
Yeah,
the more
definitely.
You can stack it.
The amount of shields and the ability, like if you've got what we found was, and obviously you do these in bigger games as well, but it is so important at this points level. Getting someone with a shield into 2 people and saying I'm going to shield, and then so you can do a 2-on-1 in your favour elsewhere is really powerful. And pikes give you a lot of ability to stack that when maybe you can't get a trap going on. Yeah, it's a cool list, and I mean, you would never see Brogir being leader of an Easterling force elsewhere.
No, that's what I'm quite liking about this points level. And I think we've got 355 coming up next after this. Well, together, I know you've got one before that.
Yeah.
Which I think that'll be interesting because we'll start seeing some other characters maybe that don't normally get used.
Sure. Yeah. Well, let's get to the wrap up then. That is everything in terms of the army list we're gonna do. And if we didn't like your lists or we spoke badly about it, just ignore us because it's just our opinion at the end of the day. You do you. And it would be a bit boring if we sat here and we were like 10 out of 10, 10 out of 10. So you know, just take it as it is. Looking forward to seeing everyone on the day, having 6 cracking games.
6 games in a day will be nice.
Yeah. And Dan, I've not met Dan personally, but we've got mutual friends. And he seems like he's been doing a really good job as a TO and stuff. So I'm looking forward to going to an event held by him. Any final comments, Ash, before we wrap this up?
No, yeah, just like you said, if we've said anything bad about your list, don't take it too personally.
Yeah, I mean,
And we're still going to have a good game with even if we got those Lake Town or Goblin Town, we'll probably still try and make a good game out of it. We're just pointing out what we see as could be potential problems for the list. I'm looking forward to having 6 games in a day. I think it might be quite knackering at the end mentally. But I think it'll be a good day out, and it's looking like there's nice weather, which hopefully we're not in some sweaty venue.
And odds on, like, because it's what normally happens, I've said, that's not something. I'm almost certainly going to get slapped by Toriel's Rangers now, because me saying something negative just increases its fight skill or something along those lines. Equivalent gives you the equivalent of a banner.
gives them better dice rolls, more luck.
Yeah. But no, I'm looking forward to it. And we'll see you all there at the event. But yeah, Ash, any final words before we say goodbye?
Not that. No, just we'll do the review when we get back. Looking forward to a good day out and trying out finally getting away from the Rohan.
Well, cheers, everyone. I hope you've enjoyed this tournament preview. If you're not already, please do subscribe to the YouTube channel. We've got our ever-growing Instagram feed where we do put up a lot of our work in progresses. I don't know why, but I mean, maybe people like what we're doing, but the Instagram is incredibly popular. I think we're not, if we get a few hundred more followers, we're actually probably the biggest Middle-earth channel on Instagram in the UK. So doing really well over there. And as usual, our main podcast is available on Spotify and all the other podcast providers. And you can look forward to a main episode covering this tournament coming in the near future. But yeah, that's all from us. Hope to see you there tomorrow. Cheers, everyone.
Cheers, everyone. Don't forget to like and subscribe.